we're going to get it done for the state of Ohio. The very last press conference of Ohio State preparation for the game, Denzel Burke makes the most noteworthy thing we heard, the most noteworthy soundbite. I don't know, does that count as guaranteeing victory? I guess we can debate that on Snap Judgments. They're brought to you by Buyers Auto. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. Is that a full guarantee or just like going to go try really hard?
I think it's just a player being confident in his team's ability to win, which like he should be. I always hate I hope not too much gets made out of that.
Well,
I
know better.
Yeah,
you know.
I do know better. The man was not guaranteeing victory. He was expressing confidence in himself and his teammates, but we are who we are, so it'll get blown out of proportion.
Yeah, it's the weirdest obsession in sports. Oh, I think we're going to go up there and get our asses kicked. Like no one ever says that, and no one ever should say that. It is a part of the calculated risk of who gets to talk today. Like with the first four guys we talked to with Kyle McCord and Emeka Ibuka and Cody Simon and Marvin Harrison, and you feel fairly confident none of them are going to say anything that would be even remotely inflammatory.
And they did not.
It was about as milquetoast as it gets. And then Denzel, who has taken on what Austin calls him the truth teller of the defense, he's taken on this role. He's extremely confident, and good for him.
I love it.
He's not guaranteeing a win. He's saying, hey, they're going to be ready to go. That's bottom line.
And also, if either one of these teams needed bulletin board material at this point,
right,
with the stakes involved, that wouldn't be ideal for either one to try and get it done. So I do agree with both of you. It will get blown out. Some of the comments from Kyle McCord, who was trying to say, hey, you prepare like it's just another game. Marvin Harrison saying the same thing. Like, that doesn't mean that they don't think it's important. But they're trying to keep it in perspective.
Kyle also called it the greatest rivalry in sports, which
and that he understands a huge honor. And Marvin said it's the biggest game we've ever played in. But you can't think about it like that on Tuesday. And that was the point I think they were trying to make. Like Cody Simon, I think it was, who said they can't win the game today. Now you can lose the game today, I think, but you can't win it today. So there is a mentality of not getting too far ahead of themselves, and everyone around here knows what's at stake. I mean, it's not rocket surgery.
No, it's not. And most rockets don't require surgery, I don't believe.
You've never really seen many rockets, have you?
No, I don't know that much about them, but that's a different show. We also heard, in addition to those 5 Buckeyes, we heard from Ryan Day and Jim Knowles. Bill, what did you learn, if anything, from those conversations, which were also pretty buttoned up?
Yeah, pretty buttoned up, short, about 15 minutes or so with each of them. I don't know that we learned a whole lot from Ryan Day other than he did not seem as tightly wound, I thought, as he did last year, which you asked him about, and he didn't really entertain the notion of the question. But you were exactly spot on, I think, with your analysis of him last year, which is I don't think he handled the week leading up to this game very well, and then his team kind of reflected that when they got on the field and played tight. So I did not pick up on that from him today, which I think is a good thing, and nor did I pick up on it from any of the players that we talked to. They're fired up, especially Denzel Burke, but I'm led to believe that they're going to put their best foot forward in this game because I think they do have a better mental grasp on what this is.
A year ago at this time, on a Tuesday in the Woody, I remember us talking about that was the most tight-lipped, uptight, short Ryan Day press conference of all time. I didn't love it, and you could have spun it as, he's really laser-focused in on this. He's got no distractions, but that's just not really his personality. Yeah. And we've talked about it hundreds of times, and the shorthand has been, are you going to see Georgia Ryan Day? And I don't know. The situation is different. The stakes for this game, even compared to a playoff game, as crazy it is as to say it out loud, there's no way you can be totally relaxed for what's going to happen on Saturday. There's extra security involved. Ohio State is bringing 6 police officers with them for their escort on the buses up north on Friday into the stadium on Saturday. They're having to make preparations and working with Big Ten officials to coordinate going down the tunnel.
There are police officers in here today.
Today there are police officers and red coats. You were here.
Yeah,
to make sure that
the acid rain comments are going to come back to bite me.
And to also keep spies out. I don't know.
Were there any Michigan media here?
I think there
was one.
I didn't see any, but
I saw one black guy I didn't recognize.
They were warned; they couldn't get.
He didn't
in.
have a goatee though, so don't worry.
There were too many police officers to let them into the team room. But there's no way, I don't think, to get fully to the relaxed, joking pregame version that we saw of Ryan Day. Ultimately, what matters is if he calls a similar game plan or manages the situations the same thing once noon comes around. I think there's probably a good chance that we're going to see that or the best version of him. But it does feel very different than a year ago at this time. what that means over the next 4 days before kickoff, I guess we'll find out.
It's illogical to expect him to get to that point, as you said. Like, this is extremely personal for Ryan Day. He has had his entire world questioned over the last 2 years because of Michigan. And like, no matter how much you try to push it all aside, no matter how much you try to say, hey, we're going to focus just on what we can control, like, that narrative is out there in the ether, and it has taken over every conversation about the Ohio State football program in the last 2 years. So, like, I've tried to say it over the last couple of weeks, but no program and no person has been more personally impacted by this Connor Stalions Michigan cheating thing than Ryan Day. Like it is impossible to expect him to not be somewhat uptight about it. Like, his entire legacy as a coach, as a person in the state of Ohio, relies on this game. And like, even if they lose, it shouldn't all rely on his, it shouldn't all dictate everything that everyone thinks about him forever and ever, all in, but it will. And how can you possibly be loose in that situation?
He did say that it is hard to keep the personal feelings out of it, but he's trying as best as he can to do so. But
like,
I think
Denzel Burke saying, I'm doing this for our head coach. Like,
did he say that?
Yeah, like he said,
in the state of Ohio.
But he said head coach first. That's an interesting thing to hear. We don't generally get that vibe from people around here, and it just feels different.
Yeah, in some ways, because not only did they lose and not feel like they executed, but also just trying to piece together how much of it was caused by anything that they did wrong and what they couldn't know and can control on the other sideline. And I didn't know if Jim Knowles would answer my question to him about this or not. Like, did you actually, when you look back, which I know that everyone in this building has now, and tried to look at certain plays and like, oh, that's weird. They were in the exact right call for the defense. So they go, like, were you too aggressive? Like, when you did your deep dive and self-scouting, and he has changed things, and they are eliminating the explosive plays. We've talked about that all year, but like, what's the balance? Do you allow yourself to think about that as a coach? And he's like, well, got into a philosophical explanation in a Philadelphia Catholic League high school.
Jesuit priest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting into, not learning from the past and being doomed to repeat it while also staying in the moment. Like, that is the most delicate balancing act. And I think it's symbolic of the entire week. Like, there's nothing Ohio State can do to change it. If those wins get vacated down the road, guess what? They're not going to give gold pants to the Buckeyes that played in those games. Like, so you're not going to benefit from thinking about that way. And I understand that when I ask the question, but like, if that keeps him from blitzing on Saturday, thinking about maybe they have the signals, like, that's going to doom them to failure as well.
Yeah, I don't think they'll use that the wrong way. They're aware of it, because even Ryan Day, I think twice, made reference to like how things have happened the last 2 years, which I think is probably as close as he'll get to saying we didn't feel like we got a fair fight in those games because of what was going on with their sign stealing. But like, and I think there's a way to use that as motivational fuel without it impacting you negatively, like you're talking about. They'll have to do it, right? I don't think that's easy. And like, if I put myself in their shoes, I would almost want to go out there and like do all the same stuff over again to prove that it can work, right?
That's been Ryan Day's like biggest problem. Is just proving to himself, okay, fine, we'll try it again.
I knew this could work.
Don't do that.
Bill's over here asking like 20 stretching the boundaries. Let's bring it back.
Well, maybe. It worked when Minnesota did it. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I thought your question to Jim Knowles was interesting in his response, equally so. I do think they are trying to find the proper balance between recognizing that, acknowledging it happened, probably being pissed off about it, but not letting it consume them to the point where it enforces bad habits or trying to do something outside of yourself to overcorrect it.
That's I think Kyle McCord's biggest challenge this week. I mean, that was talked about a lot today, probably more than it should have been. The decision between J.J. McCarthy and Kyle McCord as recruits. Kyle McCord basically said, once you get here, that stuff doesn't really matter anymore, but it's in the back of your head because Ohio State fans have been able to verbalize that at him. Oh, we picked the wrong quarterback. I mean, we've seen that out there and people saying it. And I think that ability to listen to the noise, but not allow it to impact you and let it change how you're preparing or change what you're thinking, like that's the thread that's the needle you're trying to thread. Like, you have to hear it because you want that motivation, because you want to prove people wrong. You want to prove other people right, but you can't allow that to dictate how you prepare or to get you playing outside of yourself. And that, if I look ahead to Saturday, like that's one of my biggest issues, concerns. It's like, are guys going to try to do too much, knowing that they felt like the last 2 years were stolen from them? And that's something that's a real concern. And I think you have to see the coaches responding this way, because if they aren't responding this way, there's no way the team's going to respond that way. You're dealing with 20-year-olds.
What do you remember most or foremost about that recruitment and the decision at quarterback? You said that we may be making too much out of it.
They were both good quarterbacks. I mean, it was never a thing. It turned into what it's turned into because someone decided to ask J.J. McCarthy about it at his high school, when it could have just been left to die. But that person, who will remain nameless,
I know,
is a guy who ostensibly roots for Ohio State and wanted to ask a question for some reason that was bizarre. So, Ryan Day talked at length on Tuesday about how his respect for JJ and the family, and that's how it goes. You only pick one quarterback a class. Like, if you can't take it personally, I guess, or you can if it's what motivates you. But they picked Kyle McCord because he's bigger, and they thought he was a more accurate passer, and now you got to prove him right.
That was the only mention of respect for a singular person on the Michigan side that came from Ryan Day, unless I'm mistaken. He said he had respect for the rivalry, but I am interested by this, and maybe we'll talk about it more later in the week, but the way that these teams, both teams, Jim Harbaugh on Monday and then Ryan Day on Tuesday, talk about the game is so different now than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's nice if
I think you like it. You like it, though.
I prefer it, I think. Like, it's great that Woody and Bo respected each other. They also had a special personal relationship that predated their involvement in the rivalry, or at least being on opposite sides of the rivalry, that carried through there. Like, that makes sense. And like Jim Tressel and Lloyd Carr, I'm sure, could have a cup of coffee together if they wanted to, and that's great. If I'm involved in this, I don't want the head coaches to like each other. Respect the rivalry, yes, and respect it in a way that makes your preparation what it needs to be. But I don't need the coaches to be singing Kumbaya. I hope they don't talk to each other at the 50-yard line before the game. I'm sure they won't. Well, Jim Harbaugh won't even be there. Jim Harbaugh won't even be there to do it.
Impossible.
Yeah. So, but even if he was, let's pretend that they didn't cheat and he was there. That's perfectly fine with me. I thought the right tone was struck both by Jim Harbaugh and by Ryan Day. Like, no, don't pretend like you respect them. Respect each other personally. If you don't, just dodge the question and talk about something else.
Yeah, that's to me like when Jim Harbaugh was asked about it on Monday, and he doesn't respond in a way that people want to hear. I don't know why you want to hear him say, "Oh, yes, I do respect Ryan Day." No, he doesn't.
Yeah,
these guys hate each other.
You want him to lie to you?
Absolutely.
Like they don't like each other. This is not the WWE. This is not a fabricated. This is not a fabricated animus between. They do not like each other.
What?
Wrestling's not fabricated.
What is he talking about?
Yeah.
Those guys hang out on the bus after the bouts are over, okay? This is not the situation. These dudes do not like each other. Yeah. And to pretend otherwise would be silly. And people want coaches to be honest, and then when they are honest, albeit indirectly, people get mad about it. Like, you want them to be honest.
So right now, they're really breaking kayfabe by revealing that they truly hate each other. That's the opposite of WWE scripts, is what you're saying.
Who's the heel? Who's the face here?
They're breaking what?
Kayfabe.
That's the beauty of this situation, Bill, is that both sides are the heel and both sides are the face, depending on who you ask. Like,
No. Not in this version.
yeah, if you ask Michigan fans, Ryan Day's the villain. I mean, there's no.
Everyone has someone that they're going to cheer for. Ohio State fans, to your point, yes, that team is the face. But nationally, I think the perspective of this game has switched from what it was 10 years ago.
I think objectively, people around the country believe that Michigan is in the wrong and that they deserve to lose this game, which is, as you mentioned on the live show on Monday, very unusual. No one ever roots for Ohio State. That's why the Ohio versus the world shirts exist. You can buy those at oatw.com or something, and all that money goes to help Ohio State's NIL. That exists because that's the way it was. Well, but you also have to remember the last 2 years, Ohio State in here started making shirts that said Woody versus the world because they believed that Ohio State fans were turning on them because of what happened in the Michigan game. So this is
because they were
right. It's such a different. This game is so different. I'm going to stop talking because I'm starting. I'm going to get off.
How we feeling? How we feeling on Tuesday?
This is Snappy J's. It's vibe check time.
I don't think people can understand the way that these teams feel about each other is not normal. It is not a healthy respect for the team. It is, I hate you. And that's, Alabama and Auburn, cool, good rivalry. Like, this is not the same thing. It's not anywhere close to anything else in sports.
But your perspective is always going to be different than ours from growing up with it. But do you agree or not agree that there was a shift, and then 2012 to now, I think, is still very different. The first time I covered the game, I did feel like it was like Zach Bourne was going to go shake hands with somebody on the other sideline. I think there's far more likely to be a brawl before and after the game than anyone shaking hands.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, that part has changed. Like, I don't know when it changed.
It's not the same, but it changed when it seemed like Michigan skirted a game in 2020. And
they
then
shook hands last year, didn't they? There was nothing.
You mean when Michigan was planting its flag?
Yeah, but Ohio State was going off the field by then.
I mean, there was a cursory.
Then Michigan stayed out there and partied on the field for an hour. So I guess I don't remember.
In 2021, there was a handshake. I remember the photo of the snow falling and Harbaugh with his big poop-eating grin on his face, like
guy eats poop.
It's
heard it here first.
It's changed because Jim Harbaugh, for as much as he probably doesn't like Urban Meyer, you could tell he respected Urban Meyer.
He was afraid of him. Yeah.
And I don't know if Ryan Day said something to him at midfield in 2019 to piss him off. I mean, we don't know. There has to be some impetus there where Jim Harbaugh decided, I do not like this guy. And I don't know what it stems from. But, I mean, I guess when his offense put up 60 points on you back-to-back years, and then
it's probably part of it.
He's the head coach, and they go to your place and beat you, and then you know, your entire job was reliant on skipping a game in 2020. Like, maybe you use that as a motivation to dislike someone. I don't think there's any personal reason for Jim Harbaugh to dislike Ryan Day, not that I'm aware of until now.
Yeah. Me either, but they clearly don't. And that's that. That's snap judgments. Oh, yeah, injury update. There's not one.
Fires Auto, thank you for, always supporting us here. Sorry about the rants. Lathan Ransom's not going to play. Let's be clear, okay?
He's not going to play. That's not part of max capacity. Yeah. Season-ending injuries are one bucket over here. Lathan Ransom, Mayan Williams, Court Williams, Keon Grays, I believe.
Jason Moore, Will Smith. I mean, those guys.
That's pretty much it.
Reese Stockdale
not going to play. But
thanks, Bill.
Mike Hall,
that's what I'm here for.
Expect him to play. Nobody else is even close at this point. Emeka's back, Cade's back, Travion's back. Tommy is going to play no matter what the circumstances. So that's the rundown there. Saved it for last because there's really not more to say about it. This is an all-hands-on-deck situation, and Ohio State has been building for it for several weeks to be as healthy as possible for noon on Saturday in the Big House. We'll be there. We can't wait. We're one day closer, and snap judgments brought to you by Buckeyes Auto are in the bag. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning for the Podcast Daily.